You know that feeling, right? When you're in a negotiation and you're totally backed into a corner and the person on the other side of the table knows it. It feels deeply unfair. But when does driving a hard bargain cross a line and become illegal? That's what we're going to figure out today. And that's really the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, your gut instinct says yes. If a deal is completely one-sided, there has to be a law against that. But as you're about to see, the legal answer is a whole lot more complicated than you might think. So, to really get our heads around this, we're going to look at a real-world case, one that actually went all the way to Australia's highest court. It's a story that perfectly captures this battle between what feels morally wrong and what is actually against the law.
Yeah, at the very center of this whole legal tangle was a family. We're not talking about some big corporation here, just regular small business owners who were trying to protect everything they'd built, and they were in a really, really tough spot.
So, picture this. The tenants were under a ton of pressure. They absolutely had to get their shop lease renewed. But it wasn't just about business. Their daughter was seriously ill, adding this incredible personal stress to the mix. On top of all that, they were trying to sell their business, something they couldn't possibly do without that lease. And the landlord knew every single bit of it. They had all the power.
So what does the landlord do? They use all this leverage. They basically say, sure, you can have your lease renewal, but only if you drop this other legal fight you have going against us. The family felt like they had no choice, so they agreed. But later on, they decided to fight back, and they took the landlord to court, which brings us to the key legal idea here.
The family's whole case was built on this one concept: unconscionable conduct. It's a really important part of consumer law, and it's there to protect people from truly predatory behavior. The legal definition basically asks, was this so incredibly harsh, so ridiculously one-sided that it just goes against all good conscience?
So their argument in court was pretty simple, really. They said the landlord knew how desperate they were, with their sick daughter and the need to sell the business, and used that desperation to force their hand. This wasn't just a tough deal, they argued. This was unconscionable.
Okay, so based on everything we've just laid out, you're probably thinking you know where this is going, right? You've got the vulnerable family versus the powerful landlord. The court's going to side with the family. But the law doesn't always follow our sense of what's fair. This is really where the rubber meets the road. It's clear the landlord exploited the family's situation to get what they wanted. It feels wrong. It feels exploitative. So the big question is, does that make it illegal? And get this, the High Court of Australia, the most powerful court in the nation, said, nope, it was not unconscionable conduct. They sided with the landlord. I know, it's a shocking outcome for a lot of people. To understand why they made that call, we have to look at the very specific way the court thought about it. See, the court wasn't operating on what feels fair. Their decision came down to a very specific two-part legal test that is just crucial to understanding this whole area of law. So let's break that down. Okay, so this is absolutely key. For something to be legally unconscionable, you've got to hit both of these points. First, the person in the weaker position has to have a special disadvantage. And second, the stronger party has to have knowingly exploited that specific disadvantage. And here's the kicker. The tenant's case fell apart on step 1.
And this quote from the actual ruling, man, it just cuts right to the chase. The judges were like, look, we get it. The tenants were in a tough situation. But, and this is a huge but, they decided that their situation didn't count as a special disadvantage. Why? Because it didn't mess with their ability to think clearly and make a decision for themselves. And that right there is the line in the sand. Being in a tough spot, having bad bargaining power, that's not the same thing as having what the law calls a special disadvantage. A special disadvantage is something more fundamental, like a serious illness or an inability to understand the language, something that truly prevents you from being able to look out for yourself. The court basically said the tenants were under pressure, sure, but they were still capable business people who knew what they were signing.
All right, so let's pull it all together. What can we take away from this pretty shocking case about the difference between a tough deal and an illegal one? Well, it all boils down to a clear, if sometimes harsh, legal standard. This slide just lays it all out perfectly. On one side, you've got your hard bargain. This is just someone using a stronger position to get a good deal. It might feel ruthless, but that's business, and it's totally legal. But on the other side, you have unconscionable conduct, and that is a whole different ballgame. That's about exploiting a special kind of vulnerability, a condition that so seriously clouds someone's judgment that they can't make a rational decision. That's what's against the law.
So at the end of the day, here's the big idea. The law on unconscionable conduct isn't trying to make every deal perfectly fair. It's more like a safety net.
It's there to catch and protect the people who are truly vulnerable, those who, because of some special disadvantage, just can't protect themselves.
And that kind of leaves us with one last question, doesn't it? The High Court drew a very clear legal line. What the landlord did was lawful. But was it ethical? It makes you think, in your own life, in your own business, just because you can do something, does that mean you should? Where do you draw the line?